The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the dusty roadside diner. It was the kind of place where truckers nursed black coffee and locals swapped stories about storms that never came. Inside, the air smelled of sizzling grease and stale cigarettes, the jukebox humming a forgotten country tune about lost highways. But outside, in the gravel lot, chaos had erupted like a sudden thunderclap. A boy, no older than 12, with dirt-streaked cheeks and wide, terrified eyes, stumbled from the diner's back alley. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, faint marks suggesting rough hands had grabbed him too hard. He clutched a faded backpack like a lifeline, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, two men in faded jackets, rough types with tattoos snaking up their necks, emerged from the shadows, their faces twisted in predatory grins. "Hey, kid, you ain't going nowhere," one barked, his voice gravelly and laced with menace. The boy froze, backing against a rusted pickup truck, his small frame trembling as the men closed in. No one inside the diner noticed. The hum of conversation drowned out his whimpered pleas. Fear etched deep lines on his young face. This wasn't just a scuffle. It was the kind of encounter that left scars no child should bear. That's when the roar shattered the evening calm. A lone motorcycle thundered into the lot, its engine a guttural beast that turned heads and silenced the jukebox mid-note. The rider, a weathered man in his 40s named Ethan Hale, cut the ignition with a practiced flick, the bike settling like a predator at rest. Ethan was no stranger to roads like this. His leather vest bore the faded patch of the Iron Vipers, a crew bound by oaths older than the scars on his knuckles, broad-shouldered, with a salt-and-pepper beard and eyes that had seen too many dawns break over battlefields. He dismounted slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel. He'd been riding solo for hours, chasing ghosts from a promise made decades ago in a foxhole halfway across the world, a vow to protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The men turned, sizing him up with sneers. "Mind your business, old man," the taller one growled, stepping forward. But Ethan didn't flinch. He glanced at the boy, whose eyes locked onto him like a beacon in the storm. Something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of recognition perhaps, or just the raw need for rescue. Ethan's hand rested lightly on the handlebars, but his voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You two look like you've had a long day. Why don't you walk away? Kid's not worth the trouble." The men laughed, but it was forced, their postures shifting uneasily. The boy edged closer to the motorcycle, his fingers brushing the warm chrome as if drawing strength from it. What happened next would bind them in ways none could foresee. The taller man lunged, fist raised, but Ethan moved like shadow, sidestepping with the grace of someone who'd danced with death before. He didn't strike back. Instead, he grabbed the man's arm, twisting just enough to drop him to his knees. The second backed off, hands up, muttering curses as he dragged his partner away. The diner door swung open then, patrons spilling out, but Ethan waved them off. "It's handled," he said quietly, his gaze never leaving the boy. The kid's chest heaved, tears carving clean paths through the grime on his face. They were gonna take me," he whispered, voice cracking. Ethan knelt to his level, the scent of leather and exhaust mingling with the boy's fear sweat. "No one's taking you anywhere, son. Not on my watch." He pulled a worn bandana from his pocket, offering it to wipe the boy's face. In that moment, amid the fading echoes of the confrontation, Ethan felt the weight of his old promise stir, a soldier's oath to a fallen brother, sworn under fire. Look out for the ones who can't fight back. He'd buried it deep after the war, after losing his squad to a betrayal that still haunted his dreams. But here, in this forgotten lot, it resurfaced like a road sign in the fog. The boy hesitated, then nodded, clutching the bandana. "I'm Alex," he said softly. "Thanks, mister." Ethan stood, scanning the horizon where the men's truck peeled out in a spray of dust. "Ethan, and you're safe now. Hop on if you need a ride. There's a town up ahead with folks who can help." Alex's eyes widened at the motorcycle, its black frame gleaming under the dying sun. He circled it tentatively, curiosity overriding fear, his small hands tracing the curves of the exhaust pipes. That's when he froze, his fingers halting on the undercarriage near the rear wheel. A small, metallic device clung there, no bigger than a matchbox, its tiny light blinking red in the twilight. Wires snaked subtly into the frame, hidden but not invisible to a child's keen eye. Alex's face drained of color. "Wait, what's this?" he murmured, plucking at it gingerly. Ethan turned, brow furrowing, but before he could react, Alex yanked it free with a sharp tug. The device clattered to the gravel, its light pulsing faster now, like a heartbeat in panic. The boy stared at it, then at Ethan, his voice rising in a yell that pierced the air. "It's a bomb! Someone's trying to kill you!" The word hung there, freezing everything, the distant hum of traffic, the curious murmurs from the diner crowd, even the wind rustling the roadside weeds. Ethan's blood ran cold. He snatched the device, examining its crude wiring and timer, now ticking audibly in the silence. Who would plant this? And why now, after years of riding free? The Iron Viper's code echoed in his mind, loyalty above all, but betrayal lurked in shadows. Alex backed away, eyes wide with the gravity of what he'd uncovered. In that instant, a new promise formed, unspoken but ironclad. Ethan would protect this boy, unravel the threat, and honor the brotherhood that had shaped him. The road ahead stretched dark and uncertain, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt alive with purpose. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in blood-red streaks, Ethan secured the device in his saddlebag and helped Alex onto the bike. The engine roared back to life, a defiant growl against the encroaching night. They sped away from the diner, the boy's arms wrapped tight around Ethan's waist, the weight of secrets pressing heavier than the wind. Little did they know, this discovery was just the spark, igniting a chain of events that would summon the Vipers from across the state, testing bonds forged in fire and revealing a corruption that threatened everything they held dear. The miles blurred by, headlights cutting through the dusk like knives. Ethan's mind raced. The device was amateurish but deliberate. A warning? Or the work of someone from his past, the war, the club, the life he'd tried to leave behind? Alex, pressed against his back, whispered questions into the rush of air, but Ethan only gripped the handlebars tighter. By the time they reached the neon glow of Willow Creek, a small town nestled in the hills, the first stars pricked the sky. They pulled into a quiet motel, its sign flickering like a wary eye. Inside the dimly lit room, Ethan set the device on the table, its timer silenced, but its presence ominous. Alex sat on the bed, knees drawn up, recounting how he'd spotted it, pure luck or fate. Those guys at the diner, they weren't just random, the boy said, voice steadying. I heard them talking about the rider who knows too much. Ethan's jaw tightened. Too much about what? The old promise burned brighter now, linking his soldier's past to this child's present. He made a call then to Jax, his second-in-command back at the Viper's compound. Trouble on the road, brother. Need eyes open. The line crackled with Jax's gravelly reply, We're with you, Hale, always. As the night deepened, Ethan watched over Alex, the boy finally drifting to sleep under the hum of the AC. Outside, the motorcycle stood sentinel, its secrets buried but stirring. Dawn would bring riders, revelations, and a fight for justice that no one saw coming. For Ethan Hale, the road had just turned from escape to reckoning. The motel room in Willow Creek carried the faint tang of mildew and cheap pine cleaner, the kind that masked deeper stains. Ethan Hale sat in the threadbare armchair by the window, the device's cold metal glinting under the lamp's harsh glow. Its timer was frozen at 0:47, a digital ghost mocking the seconds they'd stolen from disaster. Alex slept fitfully on the bed, his small chest rising and falling like waves on a troubled sea, the bandana clutched in his fist. Outside, the night pressed against the glass, alive with the chirp of crickets and the distant rumble of a freight train slicing through the hills. Ethan rubbed his beard, the stubble rasping under his calloused fingers. This wasn't random malice. The wiring screamed amateur sabotage, but the intent was professional, personal. He replayed the diner's chaos in his mind. The boys' terror, the men's snarls, the device waiting like a serpent in the grass. Alex's yell had cut deeper than any blade, freezing the air with truth. Bomb. The word echoed, pulling threads from Ethan's past. 20 years ago, in the scorched sands of a forgotten conflict, he'd watched a brother in arms disarm a similar trap under fire. Sergeant Riley Kane, eyes steady as he snipped the wire. Promises keep us alive, Hale. We look out for our own. Riley hadn't made it home. Shrapnel claimed him in the next patrol. Ethan had sworn then to carry the weight, to shield the vulnerable. The Iron Vipers had been born from that grief, a brotherhood of vets piecing together honor from shattered lives. But lately, whispers of rot had seeped in. Missing dues, shadowed deals. Was this the payback for prying too close? The phone buzzed on the nightstand, Jax's number lighting the screen. Ethan answered low, voice a gravel whisper. "Talk to me." Jax's reply crackled through, urgent but controlled. "Riders are mobilizing, Ethan. I got word from the compound. 2 of our prospects tailed a black SUV out of town after your diner stop. Same plates as those goons. They're circling Willow Creek like vultures." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Prospects, young bloods proving their mettle, loyal but green. Keep 'em at a distance. This thing on my bike, it's a message. Someone knows I'm digging into the old shipments. Jax paused, the line humming with unspoken history. The shipments, crates from the war era, smuggled relics that the Vipers had intercepted years back, meant for black market hands. Ethan had led the bust, honoring Riley's code. But corruption had festered. A rogue element in the club, tied to local suits, was stirring the pot again. "Copy that," Jack said. "I'll rally the corps. By first light, we'll have 20 bikes en route. You hold the line." Ethan glanced at Alex, the boy's face slack in sleep, innocent amid the storm. "There's a kid here, Jax. Witnesses everything. He's under my wing now." A beat of silence, then Jax's chuckle, warm as engine oil. "Family's what we make it, brother. Ride safe." The call ended, leaving Ethan with the quiet tick of the wall clock. He stood, muscles aching from the ride, and stepped to the window. The parking lot was a sea of shadows, his motorcycle a hulking silhouette under the sodium lamp. He needed to check it, ensure no more surprises lurked. Slipping outside, the cool night air bit at his skin, carrying the scent of damp earth from the nearby woods. Gravel crunched under his boots as he approached the bike, its chrome dulled by dew. He ran his hands along the frame, methodical, like diffusing a memory. Nothing. But as he knelt by the rear wheel, a faint glint caught his eye. A second device. No, just a loose reflector. Paranoia or caution? The wind rustled the motel's sign, its buzz a low dirge. Ethan straightened, scanning the road. Headlights flickered in the distance, too steady for deer, too purposeful for wanderers. He melted back into the shadows, waiting. The car slowed, a sleek sedan that didn't belong in these parts, its engine purring like a threat. It idled at the lot's edge, windows tinted black. Ethan's pulse quickened. He edged toward the bike, ready to shield it, or Alex. Minutes stretched, taut as a bowstring. Then a door creaked open, and a figure stepped out. A woman mid-30s with sharp features and a coat that whispered authority. She lit a cigarette, the flame illuminating wary eyes. Not an attacker? Scout? Ethan held his breath, but she didn't advance. Instead, she flicked the butt away and murmured into a phone, voice lost to the night. The sedan peeled off, vanishing toward the hills. Back inside, Ethan barred the door, his mind a whirlwind. Who was she? Club intel, or worse, tied to the corruption he'd sniffed out months ago? The sheriff's office turning blind eyes to Viper rivals, peddling tainted goods. Alex stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Everything okay?" the boy mumbled, sitting up. Ethan forced a nod, settling on the bed's edge. "For now. Tell me more about those men at the diner. Anything stand out?" Alex rubbed his eyes, the weight of the day etching lines on his young face. "They had badges. Fake ones, maybe. Said something about cleaning up loose ends before you showed." Badges. Ethan's gut twisted. Corruption ran deep then, local law or imposters. The promise to Riley burned hotter, protect the innocent, expose the rot. As dawn's first grey light filtered through the curtains, staining the room in muted tones, Ethan packed their gear. The device went into a padded pouch, a relic to confront later. Alex watched, quiet but resolute, his fear hardening into something fiercer. "You're not leaving me behind, right?" he asked, voice small but steady. Ethan met his gaze, the bond sealing like weld on steel. "Not a chance, kid. We're in this ride together." The engine's roar would summon the Vipers soon, a thunder of loyalty against the gathering storm. But as they stepped into the paling light, Ethan felt eyes on them, unseen, unyielding. The road to truth twisted ahead, paved with old oaths and new dangers, where one boy's yell had ignited a fire that would test the soul of the brotherhood. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The first rays of dawn clawed over the hills, turning the motel's parking lot into a canvas of gold and shadow. Ethan Hale revved the motorcycle's engine, a low thunder that vibrated through the gravel like a heartbeat quickening for battle. Alex clung to his back, the boy's arms locked tight around Ethan's waist, his breath warm against the leather vest. The air carried the crisp bite of morning dew, mixed with the faint, acrid tang of exhaust, chasing away the night's stale secrets. They'd barely slept, but resolve had hardened in the hours since the sedan's ghostly visit. Eyes everywhere, trust a fragile commodity on roads like these. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror, the device's pouch bulging in the saddlebag like a concealed wound. "Hold on, Alex. We're meeting the crew at the old mill outside town. Jax says it's clear." The boy nodded, his voice muffled by the wind as they pulled out. "Those guys. They knew about you, like they'd been waiting." Ethan's jaw clenched, the helmet's visor reflecting the rising sun. Waiting for what? The shipments he'd exposed years ago, war surplus twisted into something darker, fueling a network that bled the Vipers dry from within. Riley's promise echoed, "Cut the rot, Hale, or it consumes us all." He'd thought the fight over, but this bomb screamed otherwise. The road wound through Willow Creek's outskirts, past clapboard houses with peeling paint and fields heavy with mist. The mill loomed ahead, a skeletal relic of rusted iron and forgotten industry, its silos piercing the sky like sentinels. As they approached, the horizon stirred, a distant rumble growing into a symphony of engines. Ethan eased off the throttle, pulling into the overgrown lot where weeds choked the cracked concrete. One by one, the Iron Vipers arrived. 20 bikes in formation, chrome flashing like drawn blades under the sun. Jax led them, his massive frame dwarfing the custom chopper, a scar across his cheek pulling tight as he killed the engine. The riders dismounted in a ripple of leather and boots, faces weathered by sun and storm. Patches gleaming with the Viper emblem, a serpent coiled around a broken chain, symbol of bonds unbreakable. Jack strode forward, clasping Ethan's forearm in a grip that spoke volumes. "You look like hell, brother. Kid's got you playing guardian angel." His eyes flicked to Alex, who slid off the bike, standing a little taller amid the giants. Ethan nodded, voice low. "More than that. He saved my hide, spotted the plant before it blew." Murmurs rippled through the crew, respect etching their features. One rider, a burly vet named Marcus with a prosthetic arm from the same war, knelt to Alex's level. "Smart eyes, son. Vipers owe you." But the air thickened as Ethan pulled the device from the bag, holding it aloft like evidence in a courtroom of shadows. The timer's face stared back, frozen but accusatory. "This was on my ride. Amateur work, but it points fingers. Those diner thugs, connected to the old guard, the ones pushing tainted cargo through our routes." Jax's face darkened, his fist clenching around the handle of a concealed knife. "We sniffed that out months back, thought we'd scared 'em off." The group fell silent. The only sound, the creak of leather and the distant call of a crow wheeling overhead. Corruption in the ranks, whispers of prospects bought off, dues vanishing into pockets lined with greed. Ethan's past surged, Riley's last stand, disarming a trap that mirrored this one, only to fall to friendly fire from a turncoat sergeant. The promise had forged the Vipers, but now it demanded reckoning. Alex shifted uneasily, his small hand brushing the bike's warm frame. They mentioned a name, Keller, said he'd finish what started in the war. The word hit like shrapnel. Keller. A ghost from Ethan's unit, the one who'd sold out Riley for a quick payout, vanishing into the civilian world with blood money. Jax's eyes narrowed. "Keller's local now, runs a garage up in Ridge Hollow. Ties to the sheriff's crew, if he's planting bombs." The implication hung heavy, a storm cloud over the mill. Ethan felt the weight of eyes on him. Leader, survivor, oath keeper. "We ride to his turf. Quiet, get proof, expose the rot. No blood, unless they force it." Nods rippled through the ranks, loyalty a palpable force binding them like the chains on their wallets. They mounted up, engines igniting in a chorus that shook the earth, dust billowing like smoke from a battlefield. Ethan hoisted Alex onto the bike again, the boy's grip steadier now, forged in the fire of shared purpose. The convoy surged forward, a steel serpent carving through the morning light, tires humming over asphalt scarred by time. The road to Ridge Hollow twisted like a vein through pine-thick hills, sunlight dappling the path in fleeting promises of clarity. Ethan led, wind whipping his beard, thoughts tangled in thorns. Alex's discovery had thawed something in him, a numbness from years of solo rides, burying grief under miles. This kid, with his wide eyes and unyielding yell, mirrored the innocence Riley had died protecting. Family chosen, not born, the Vipers embodied it, scars and all. Halfway there, the ambush came without fanfare. A black SUV barreling from a side road, tires screeching as it rammed the rear flank. Shouts erupted, bikes swerving in controlled chaos. Ethan gunned the throttle, shielding Alex as bullets pinged off chrome. Warning shots, not lethal but laced with intent. "Stay low," he barked, weaving through the pack. Jax peeled off, two riders flanking him, pursuing the SUV into the underbrush. The air filled with the sharp crack of gunfire and the roar of pursuit, adrenaline sharpening every sense. The burn of rubber, the metallic tang of fear sweat, the blur of green blurring past. They broke free on a straightaway, the SUV vanishing into the trees, but not before Jax radioed through. "Got a plate. Keller's outfit. They're spooked." The convoy regrouped, breaths ragged, no casualties but tempers flaring like afterburners. Marcus wiped blood from a grazed arm, the wound a shallow red line suggesting a near miss. "They're testing us, want us scattered." Ethan scanned the horizon, Ridge Hollow smokestacks just visible, belching grey defiance. "Then we close ranks, for Riley, for the code." Alex, pale but unbowed, met his gaze. "I'm not scared anymore. Let's end this." As the sun climbed higher, baking the road in waves of heat, the vipers pressed on. The mill faded in the mirrors, a waypoint in their odyssey of honor. Ethan felt the promise pulse stronger, a rhythm matching the engine's growl. Redemption not in vengeance, but in truth, unveiled. Keller's garage awaited, shadows lengthening with secrets. But in the boy's quiet resolve beside him, Ethan saw a legacy taking shape. One yell had frozen time, but this ride would thaw the ice of betrayal, forging justice from the fires of loyalty. The hills whispered warnings, but the thunder of 20 engines drowned them out, carrying them toward the heart of the storm. The sun beat down on Ridge Hollow like a relentless interrogator, turning the narrow streets into shimmering veins of heat haze. Ethan Hale led the convoy through the town's frayed edges, the rumble of 20 Iron Viper's engines, a controlled storm that parted the sparse traffic like a bow wave. Dust devils swirled in their wake, carrying the scent of pine sap and sun-baked asphalt, while Alex's grip on Ethan's waist tightened with every curve. The boy's breath came steady now, a quiet anchor amid the thunder, his earlier fear tempered into a watchful resolve. Ethan scanned the rooftops, the glint of watchful eyes hidden in the ordinary, laundry flapping on lines, faded signs creaking in the breeze. This wasn't just a garage they approached, it was a lair woven from threads of old betrayals. Keller's Auto Haven squatted at the town's outskirts, a sprawl of oil-stained bays and rusted chain-link fencing that sagged like weary shoulders. The sign above the entrance flickered erratically, its neon viper, ironic mockery, hissing against the blue sky. Ethan signaled a halt at the perimeter, engines cutting to a hush that amplified the distant clang of tools inside. The vipers fanned out, boots scuffing gravel as they formed a loose perimeter, faces etched with the quiet discipline of men who'd faced worse than a mechanic's grudge. Jax flanked Ethan, his presence a solid wall, while Marcus hung back with Alex, the vet's prosthetic hand resting lightly on the boy's shoulder. "Eyes sharp, kid. This is where shadows get long," Marcus murmured, his voice a low rumble like idling pistons. Ethan dismounted first, the heat rising from the bike's frame like steam from a fresh wound. He pulled the device from his saddlebag, its compact form a talisman of the threat unveiled. "We go in clean," he said to the group, voice carrying the weight of command honed in foxholes. "No guns drawn. We're here for answers, not a brawl. Riley's code. Truth first." Nods rippled through the ranks, leather creaking in unison, a brotherhood bound by oaths that outlasted rust. Alex stayed close, his small frame dwarfed but unbowed, the memory of his yell at the diner fueling a spark in his eyes. He'd become more than a witness. He was the catalyst, pulling Ethan from solitary miles into this fray. They advanced as a unit, pushing through the gate with measured steps, the air thick with the sharp bite of solvent and welding sparks. Inside the main bay, shadows danced under fluorescent strips, illuminating half-dismantled vehicles like gutted beasts. A lone figure emerged from the gloom. Keller himself, broad and barrel-chested, grease smeared across his forearms like war paint. His eyes, sharp as shattered glass, locked on Ethan, recognition flickering like a faulty wire. Mid-50s, with a paunch straining his oil-stained shirt and a limp from some long-ago skirmish, he wiped his hands on a rag, the motion deliberate, buying time. "Hale, didn't expect a parade. What's this, reunion tour?" The vipers spread out subtly, blocking exits without aggression. Their silence, a pressure building like storm clouds. Ethan stepped forward, holding up the device, its red light long dead, but its story alive. "This was on my bike, your handiwork or close enough. Those diner rats work for you?" Keller's face hardened, but a twitch at his jaw betrayed the lie before it formed. "Don't know what you're peddling, soldier boy. Garage life's quiet, no room for old ghosts." Alex edged nearer, peering from behind Jax's bulk, his voice cutting through the tension like a clear bell. "Liar, I heard them say your name. Keller finishes it. You're the one from the stories. The turncoat. The word landed like a dropped wrench, echoing off the concrete walls. Keller's eyes darted to the boy, surprise cracking his facade. Then back to Ethan. The air grew heavier, charged with the ghosts of shared history. The war, the unit, Riley's final stand. Ethan felt the promise stir deep in his chest, a vow etched in blood and sand. You sold us out back then, Keller. Riley disarmed your trap, took the hit meant for you. Now you're planting echoes for what? More dirty crates, tainting our roots with your sheriff pals. The vipers murmured, anger simmering but leashed, loyalty a chain holding them steady. Keller backed against a workbench, tools scattering like fleeing thoughts, his laugh bitter and hollow. Worlds changed, Hale. Promises don't pay bills. The shipments, just business. Your club's in the way, poking where it hurts. He glanced at a shadowed office door, as if expecting reinforcements. The faint hum of a radio underscoring the bluff. Jax moved then, swift but non-threatening, pinning Keller's arm without force. Talk straight. Who's pulling strings? The badges at the diner, real or your forgeries? The mechanic's resolve cracked, sweat beading on his brow despite the garage's fans whirring overhead. Sheriff's crew. They want the old war surplus cleared, clean slate for their operation. I planted it as a warning, to scare you off. Ethan's mind raced, piecing the rot. Local authority twisted with Keller's greed, preying on vulnerabilities the vipers had sworn to shield. Alex stepped fully into the light, his voice steady, carrying the moral weight of innocence preserved. You hurt people for money. That's not business, that's cowardice. The boy's words hung, freezing the moment, much like his yell at the diner. Keller sagged, the fight draining from him like oil from a punctured line. Kid's right, Riley. He was the real deal. I was scared then. Still am. A confession spilled then, halting at first, then rushing. Details of the network, drop points in the hills. The sheriff's blind eyes bought with promises of cut. No graphic tales, just the quiet unraveling of corruption's web. But triumph soured as tires crunched outside. The black SUV from the ambush, screeching to a halt with armed shadows spilling out. Gunfire cracked the air, bullets ricocheting off metal beams, forcing the vipers to dive for cover amid sparks and shouts. Ethan scooped Alex behind a truck frame, heart pounding with protective fury. Stay down! Jax and Marcus returned fire sparingly, aiming to disarm, honoring the code even in chaos. Keller, caught in the crossfire, slumped against the wall, a red stain blooming on his shirt from a stray shot, signs of a struggle that ended too soon. Finish it. For Riley, he gasped, eyes locking on Ethan's in final redemption. The skirmish blurred into motion, engines revving as the vipers countered, bikes roaring to life for evasion. Ethan gunned his throttle, Alex clinging fierce, the convoy bursting from the garage in a hail of dust and defiance. They left Keller's secrets exposed, a recording Jax had slyly captured on his phone, evidence to burn the corruption clean. But as they tore toward the open road, sirens wailed in pursuit, the sheriff's lights flashing like false justice. The promise evolved now, from protection to pursuit of truth, with Alex's courage the spark that lit the way. Bonds tightened in the rear view, family forged in fire as the hills swallowed them whole, the fight far from over. If this chapter moved you, hit that like button. It helps spread these stories of honor and heart to riders everywhere. The road out of Ridge Hollow twisted like a serpent fleeing its own skin, asphalt buckling under the relentless assault of 20 Iron Viper's engines. Ethan Hale leaned into the curve, the wind a howling gale that whipped tears from his eyes, not from speed, but from the raw sting of unfinished justice. Alex pressed against his back, the boy's body a small furnace of determination, his arms locked like iron bands forged in the garage's chaos. The air reeked of scorched rubber and gunpowder residue, clinging to their clothes like accusations. Sirens wailed behind them, a piercing chorus closing the gap, red and blue lights fracturing the afternoon sun into shards of false authority. Ethan glanced in the side mirror, the sheriff's cruisers multiplying like shadows at dusk. 3 now, then 4, their tires screaming in pursuit. Jax's voice crackled over the radio, clipped to his vest, steady amid the roar. "They're gaining, Ethan. Flank left at the fork, lose 'em in the pines." The convoy split with practiced precision, bikes peeling off in pairs, engines growling defiance as they vanished into the dense tree line. Ethan gunned the throttle, the motorcycle surging forward, branches clawing at the air like skeletal fingers. Alex's breath hitched, but his voice cut through the din, clear and unyielding. "We can't run forever. That recording, it's got to count for something." Ethan's response was a nod, felt more than seen. The weight of the boy's faith anchoring him deeper than any oath. The pines swallowed them whole. Sunlight dappled into fleeting gold, the scent of resin thick and heady, masking the metallic tang of adrenaline. Ethan wove through the narrow trail, roots and ruts jolting the frame, each bump a reminder of the fragility beneath their resolve. Memories flooded him. Riley's foxhole, the same desperate evasion under enemy fire, promises whispered in the dark to hold the line. Keller's final gasp echoed too. Finish it. For Riley, a redemption snatched from the jaws of greed, but incomplete. The sheriff's crew Keller had spilled was the rotten core. Badges bought with war relics peddled as salvage, preying on the vulnerable the Vipers had vowed to shield. Alex, with his innocent yell that started it all, embodied that vulnerability now, transformed into a quiet force. They burst from the woods onto a forgotten logging road, gravel spitting like sparks from a dying fire. The sirens faded, muffled by distance and terrain. But Ethan knew pursuit lingered, eyes in the sky, perhaps, or traitors in unlikely places. He signaled a halt at a clearing ringed by ancient oaks, their branches arching like a cathedral of silence. The Vipers regrouped, bikes idling low, riders dismounting with the creak of leather and the soft thud of boots. Jax approached, his face streaked with dust, holding up his phone. The recording secure, Keller's confession a digital blade ready to carve truth from lies. "Got it all, brother. Names, drops, the works. But we're exposed now. Sheriff'll spin it as assault on his turf." Marcus knelt by Alex, offering a water canteen, the vet's eyes soft with paternal warmth. "You held up like a viper, kid. That garage, you faced it head on." Alex took a swig, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, the bandana around his neck a talisman from their diner salvation. "I just said what I saw, like you taught me, truth first." The group circled, faces illuminated by the slanting light, a family etched in scars and shared glances. Ethan stood at the center, the device from his bike now joined by Keller's spilled secrets in his saddlebag. The air hummed with tension, the distant call of a hawk underscoring the fragility of their paws. "We ride to the compound," Ethan decided, voice resonant as a tolling bell. "Hand this over to neutral ground. Old Judge Harlan, the one who owes Riley's memory. No badges involved." Murmurs of agreement rippled, but Jax hesitated, his scar twitching. Risky. If the sheriff's in deep, Harlan might be watched. Ethan's gaze swept the crew, landing on Alex, whose wide eyes mirrored the innocence Riley had died for. The promise surged, a tide pulling him forward. Protect the line, expose the rot, build from the ashes. Then we make it our risk. For the code. For the kid who froze time back at that diner. They mounted up again, engines igniting in a symphony that shook leaves from the oaks, dust rising like a veil of resolve. The logging road gave way to back highways, the sun dipping toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and steel. Ethan felt Alex shift, the boy's chin resting on his shoulder, whispering over the wind. Keller. He looked sorry at the end, like he wanted to fix it. Ethan's throat tightened, the road blurring slightly. "Some do, son. Redemption's a long ride, but it's ours to offer." The words hung between them, a new thread in the tapestry of their bond. Chosen family, woven from crisis, but the peace shattered as shadows lengthened. A helicopter's thump-thump echoed from the east, its spotlight sweeping the horizon like a searching eye. Below, another cruiser blocked the upcoming bridge, barricades glinting ominously. Jack's radioed warning, "Ambush ahead, sheriffs playing hardball." Ethan slowed. The convoy bunching tight, hearts pounding in rhythm with the rotors. Bullets whizzed past, pinging off a lead bike's fairing, forcing evasive swerves. "Disarm, don't destroy," Ethan shouted, honoring the moral line even as chaos reigned. Marcus peeled off to draw fire, his prosthetic arms steady on the bars, while Jax flanked the cruiser, a precise shot shattering its tire in a hiss of air. In the fray, Alex's yell pierced again, not fear but clarity. "There on the bridge support, another device, just like yours." Ethan's blood chilled. The boy had spotted it, a blinking shadow amid the concrete. With a surge, Ethan veered close, extending his arm in a daring reach, yanking the wires free mid-ride. Sparks flew, the timer dying with a sputter, but the helicopter banked low, wind buffeting them like an angry god. The Vipers pressed through, breaking the blockade in a roar of unity, the bridge receding in a cloud of debris. As twilight deepened, they vanished into the gathering dusk, the compound a beacon on the horizon. The recording burned in Jax's pocket, a promise of exposure. Ethan gripped the handlebars, Alex's trust a steady warmth at his back. Keller's end had been a spark, but this pursuit forged the flame, justice moral, not vengeful, rising from loyalty's unyielding core. The road stretched into night, secrets unraveling thread by thread, with redemption waiting at journey's end. But unseen eyes followed still, the storm far from broken, testing the soul of men bound by word and wheel. The night cloaked the back highways like a heavy shroud, stars pricking through the canopy of pines as the Iron Viper's convoy carved onward toward the compound. Ethan Hale's motorcycle led the pack, its headlight a lone lance piercing the velvet dark, the engine's steady thrum a counterpoint to the fading echo of the helicopter's rotors. Alex's arms remained a firm anchor around Ethan's midsection, the boy's warmth a quiet reassurance amid the chill wind that carried whispers of pine needles and distant rain. The air tasted of freedom, tinged with caution. Every shadow along the roadside, a potential trap laid by the sheriff's unseen web. Ethan's mind churned. The recording in Jax's possession was their ace. Keller's confession a key to unlocking the corruption that had festered like rust on their oaths. But pursuit lingered, a ghost in the rear view, testing the limits of their resolve. They crested a final rise, the compound emerging from the gloom, a fortified sprawl of weathered barns and chain-link fences, lit by floodlights that bathed the gravel yard in stark pools of yellow. The Viper's home base, born from post-war salvages and sweat, stood as a testament to chosen kin. Garages humming with half-repaired bikes, a central fire pit where stories of Riley's valor were etched into the night. Ethan signaled the halt, engines winding down to a collective sigh, the sudden silence amplifying the crunch of boots on stone. Riders dismounted wearily, faces illuminated by the lights, lines of exhaustion etched deep, but eyes burning with the unquenched fire of purpose. Jax clapped Ethan on the shoulder, his grip a silent vow. "We made it. Now let's turn this poison into antidote." Inside the main hall, the air hung thick with the aroma of strong coffee brewing on a hot plate and the faint, earthy scent of oiled leather stacked in corners. A long oak table dominated the space, scarred from countless strategy sessions, flanked by mismatched chairs that had borne the weight of confessions and plans. Ethan set the saddlebag down with a thud, the device's pouch and Jax's phone laid out like artifacts from a battlefield unearthed. Alex hovered nearby, his small frame silhouetted against the window, peering out at the darkened tree line as if expecting the sheriff's lights to pierce the veil. Marcus guided him to a seat, offering a blanket that smelled of wood smoke. "Rest easy, son. This crew's got walls thicker than promises." The boy nodded, but his eyes stayed sharp, the diner yell's echo still vibrating in his veins, a catalyst that had drawn these men into his orbit. The core Vipers gathered, about a dozen now, the rest posted as sentries, their patches glinting under the hanging bulbs like badges of an unbreakable chain. Jax connected his phone to a speaker, Keller's voice filling the room, halting admissions of the tainted shipments, the sheriff's complicity in rerouting war relics for shadowy gains. The planted device as a desperate bid to silence Ethan's inquiries. The words hung heavy, painting a picture of betrayal that twisted from the past into the present. Local authorities shielding a network that preyed on the forgotten, much like the goons at the diner who'd targeted Alex. Murmurs rose, anger coiling like smoke from the fire pit outside. But Ethan raised a hand, his voice steady as bedrock. "This isn't just about Keller's ghost. It's the rot we let spread. Riley died cutting lines like these. We honor him by ending it clean. No vengeance, just truth laid bare." Debate sparked then, voices overlapping in the lamplit tension. One rider, a wiry vet named Logan, with tattoos mapping old wounds, argued for a direct ride on the sheriff's office at dawn. "They shot first. Why play nice?" Jax countered, his scar pulling taut. "Because we're vipers, not wolves. Expose it through Harlan. Let the light do the killing." Alex listened, his fingers tracing the table's grain, then spoke up, voice clear amid the rumble. "Keller said sorry at the end, like he saw what he'd broken. If we go in guns blazing, what's left to fix?" The room stilled. The boy's words freezing the air, much like his discovery at the diner. A moral anchor pulling them back from the edge. Ethan met his gaze, pride swelling unbidden. This kid, pulled from shadows, now illuminated their path. As midnight deepened, the plan solidified. Jax would courier the recording to Judge Harlan under cover of night, using backtrails known only to the faithful. Ethan volunteered to ride shotgun, Alex insisting on joining. "I'm part of this now." The group dispersed to prepare, the hall emptying into the cool embrace of the yard where stars wheeled overhead. Ethan stepped outside with the boy, the gravel cool underfoot, the distant hoot of an owl underscoring the night's watchful hush. He knelt, level with Alex's eyes, the floodlights casting long shadows that danced like unspoken fears. "You didn't ask for this ride, son, but you've got the heart for it. Riley would have been proud, spotting traps, calling truth." Alex's cheeks flushed, but he held steady. "You saved me first. That's the promise, right? Looking out." The moment stretched, fatherly warmth bridging the years between them, until Jax's call cut through. Wheels up in 10. They mounted the bikes, engines stirring to life with a low growl that vibrated through bone and resolve. The courier run launched under a sliver of moon, 3 bikes slipping from the compound like shadows detaching from the wall. Ethan, Jax, and a scout named Tyler, his frame lean and alert. Alex rode with Ethan again, the wind a gentle thief, stealing away the day's grime. The trail wound through moonlit meadows, dew-kissed grass whispering against the tires, the scent of wildflowers mingling with exhaust. Tension hummed beneath the calm. Radio chatter sparse, eyes scanning for tells, the glint of metal, the unnatural hush of wildlife. Halfway to Harlan's secluded cabin, the trap sprang subtle at first. A fallen log blocking the path, too deliberate to be chance. Ethan braked hard, the bike skidding to a halt in a spray of dirt, Alex's gasp sharp in his ear. Headlights bloomed from the underbrush, 2 unmarked vans, doors sliding open to reveal figures in tactical gear, silhouettes etched against the beams. "Sheriff's shadows," Jax muttered over the radio, his engine revving in warning. No shots yet, but the air crackled with intent, flashlights sweeping like accusatory fingers. Ethan shielded Alex with his body, voice low and commanding. "Back slow, don't give 'em an excuse." The Vipers reversed in unison, tires churning earth, but one van lunged forward, ramming Tyler's flank. Chaos erupted without full fury, a glancing blow that sent Tyler's bike fishtailing. Signs of a struggle in the skid marks and toppled forms, but no deeper harm. Ethan gunned forward to cover, Jax laying suppressive fire into the dirt, warning bursts that kicked up dust clouds like veils. "Fall back to the ridge," Ethan barked, weaving through the melee, Alex's yell rising once more. "Incoming, left flank!" The boy had seen it, a third figure circling with a device in hand, mirroring the diner's peril. Ethan's heart seized. He swerved, arm extending in a fluid arc honed by years of instinct, knocking the gadget free before it could attach. It skittered into the brush, its light winking out harmlessly. They broke contact, engines roaring into the night, the van's pursuit faltering on the uneven terrain. Jax radioed ahead to Harlan. "Package en route, trouble's on our tail." As the cabin's lights flickered into view, a modest glow amid the woods, Ethan felt the promise crest, a wave of redemption cresting toward shore. Harlan, a silver-haired pillar of quiet integrity, waited on the porch, his face grave but welcoming. The recording changed hands under the stars, a silent handoff sealing fates. "This'll burn 'em clean," the judge murmured, eyes on Alex. "Brave soul you found there, Hale." Dawn hovered on the horizon as they rode back, the compound a sanctuary drawing near. But the night's skirmish had drawn blood, not lethal, but a line crossed. The sheriff's web tightened, corruption's threads pulling taut, demanding a final stand. Ethan gripped the bars, Alex's trust a steady pulse at his back. Loyalty's fire burned brighter, forging justice from the forge of trial, with one boy's clarity the spark that refused to dim. The road curved homeward, but the true test loomed, oaths whispering of sacrifice yet to come. The first light of dawn bled across the horizon, painting the pines in strokes of rose and gold as the three Iron Viper's bikes crested the final hill toward the compound. Ethan Hale's engine purred low, a weary sentinel after the night's gauntlet, the wind carrying the fresh bite of morning mist laced with the earthy residue of the trail's skirmish. Alex's grip had loosened slightly around his waist, the boy's head nodding against his back, exhaustion claiming what adrenaline had spared. But Ethan's senses stayed razor-sharp. The faint crunch of gravel under tires, the distant murmur of a stream carving through the valley, the subtle shift in Jax's formation to the right, flanking instinctively Brotherhood's silent language. The compound gates loomed ahead, chain link etched with dew, floodlights dimming as the sun asserted its claim. They rolled in smooth, engines fading to whispers before silencing altogether in the yard. Riders emerged from the shadows, sentries who'd held the watch, their faces lighting with relief under the paling stars. Marcus was first, his prosthetic arm glinting as he strode forward, clasping Jax's forearm. "Package delivered? No tails?" Jax nodded, dismounting with a grunt, the phone now tucked safe in his vest. "Harlan's got it. Says it'll hit the right desks by noon. Clean channels. No leaks." The air hummed with cautious optimism, the scent of cooling metal mingling with the faint smoke from the fire pit, where embers glowed like lingering promises. Ethan helped Alex down, the boy's legs wobbling slightly on the gravel, his eyes heavy-lidded, but alight with the quiet triumph of survival. "We did it, right? The truth's out there now." Ethan ruffled his hair. The gesture, paternal, born from hours of shared peril, the diner's yell, the garage's revelations, the trail's evasion. "Yeah, son, truth's a slow burn, but it cleanses." The Vipers gathered loosely, a circle of leather and resolve under the awakening sky, voices low, as they recounted the night's brush with the vans. No lasting harm, just echoes of struggle in scraped paint and bruised resolve. Logan, the wiry one, passed around steaming mugs of coffee, its bitter aroma cutting the chill, grounding them in the ordinary amid the extraordinary. Inside the hall, the oak table bore fresh scars from hurried maps sketched in the pre-dawn hours. Ethan laid out the remnants, the diffused device from the bridge, a twisted wire from the trail trap, artifacts of corruption's desperate grasp. "Keller's words seal it," he said, voice resonant in the quiet space. "Sheriff's network crumbles under that light. No more shadows preying on the lost." Jax leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his scar a map of old loyalties. "But they won't fade quiet. Expect pushback, raids, smears. We stand firm." Nods circled the room, the weight of Riley's oath settling like dust after a storm. "Protect the innocent, honor the bond, redeem the fallen." Alex sat at the table's edge, blanket draped over his shoulders, listening as the men wove plans for the day's vigil. His presence anchored them, a reminder that this fight transcended bikes and badges. It was for the boy pulled from an alley, for every vulnerable soul the road discarded. "What about me?" he asked softly, fingers tracing the viper emblem on Ethan's vest. After this, the question hung, stirring something deep in Ethan. The war's ghosts, the solo miles that had numbed him, now thawed by this child's unyielding clarity. "You ride with us if you want. Family's chosen, Alex. Vipers take care of their own." As the sun climbed, bathing the compound in warm light that chased the night's chill, word arrived via a secure line, Harlan's voice grave but steady. "Recordings in motion, sheriff's office under review, feds en route, your evidence tips the scale." Relief rippled through the hall, quiet cheers muffled like prayers answered. But Ethan stepped outside alone for a moment, boots scuffing the yard, the horizon stretching endless under a sky clearing to blue. He thought of Riley then, the foxhole promise that had birthed this life. Look out for the ones who can't. Keller's end, shadowed and swift, had been a mirror, redemption glimpsed too late. Yet, in exposing the rot, they'd honored it. Justice poetic in its restraint, loyalty the blade that cut true. The sheriff's retaliation came mid-morning, not in fury but in surrender's guise. Cruisers pulling up to the gates under white flags, the man himself stepping out, face ashen, hands visible and empty. Flanked by deputies who avoided eyes, he carried a folder, warrants rescinded, confessions extracted in the night's unraveling. "It's over, Hale," he said through the chain link, voice stripped of bluster. "Your proof. It sticks. Department's cleaning house." No apologies. Just the hollow echo of accountability, the web dismantled thread by moral thread. The vipers watched from the porch, silent sentinels, Alex peeking from behind Marcus's frame, his yell's legacy etched in the sheriff's defeat. By afternoon, the compound buzzed with a different rhythm, riders tuning bikes, sharing meals around the fire pit, stories flowing like the coffee, tales of roads ridden, promises kept. Ethan sat with Alex on a weathered bench, the boy devouring a sandwich, crumbs dusting his shirt. "You froze everyone that day at the diner," Ethan said, a rare smile cracking his beard. "Gave us this." Alex grinned, the weight lifting from his young shoulders. "You rode in first, that's the start." The bond sealed there, unspoken but ironclad, father and son not by blood, but by the fire of trial, a chosen family rising from ashes. As dusk settled, painting the sky in purples and silvers, the vipers gathered for a quiet toast. To Riley, to Keller's shadowed turn, to the boy who'd yelled truth into silence. Engines idled softly in the yard, ready for whatever road called next. But for now, peace held, a redemption earned in miles and morals, honor's legacy riding eternal. The stars emerged one by one, witnesses to oaths unbroken, the thunder of brotherhood echoing into the night. Thank you for riding this journey with us. If stories of loyalty, redemption, and the open road touch your soul, Please subscribe and hit the bell for more chapters of courage and chosen family.